almost there.
It's a really nice
Most
education
everything
fund.
there.
They do a really nice job.
Yeah.
And it's not bad.
Because it all came
But
out
like,
like
they have like additional shows and additional.
All right, we'll call to order the Ravenna City Council meeting for Monday, March 6th at 6 p.m. The first item on the agenda is a moment of meditation and silence. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Chelsea, would you call the roll?
Mr. Kelsey?
Here.
Ms. West? Here. Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Ms. Michael?
Here.
Mr. Karas?
Here.
Ms. Wood?
Here.
Mr. Harper?
Here.
In your packet, you should have the meeting minutes for approval this evening from the regular city council meeting of February 6th and the special city council meeting from February 21st. Or are there any additions or corrections to either of those? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve as submitted?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next item is communications. We did receive the letter from Amy Young at the Reed Memorial Library that should be in your in your email and mailbox as well. Moving on to the delegations from the public this evening, we're joined by the Chamber of Commerce and others if anyone else would like to speak, but I'll turn it over to you, Ms. Kuchenbecker.
Okay. Good evening. I just wanted to come to you guys and just let you know what the Chamber has been up to and what we have planned so far for this year. We are in the process of organizing a charity fundraiser of some sort, whether it be for a nonprofit. We've done this for a handful of years. We started off with the Raven Packs, I think it was in 2019, 2018, something like that, where we helped promote them and get their name out there to just get them off the ground. So that's something that we always like to do within that first quarter, is something that's really focused on the community. We also have done the Rise Up Ravenna raffle, which was during COVID time, where we raised $15,000 for the smaller businesses. In addition, we also have done the, last year, in a week and a half's time, we raised $15,000 to feed the Healthcare Heroes, which was amazing in itself. So within this first quarter, the Chamber doesn't have any large events going on, and so we're looking at, as of this point, if you know of any type of nonprofits or if you know of any type of grassroots efforts, programs, let us know, or have any great ideas. Let us know, because we're definitely looking to try to do something. It could be a year-long fundraiser. It doesn't have to be all done within this first quarter, but it is something that I want to stay consistent on doing so for as long as I'm there at the Chamber. So as far as events that are going on, we do have our first honorary way recipient named as Jonathan Floyd. Thank you, Miss Chelsea, for that nomination. Definitely, he's excited. His ceremony is going to be held this Saturday at 1 p.m. So definitely come down. Feel free to stop down and see him and to just celebrate. It's like maybe 20 minutes to a half hour. We do try and do that 2 times a year. So the next one would be in October. We've had our first Lunch and Learn in February, on February 21st, with Brad Cromes, and he was discussing different sorts of funding, the new funding program through the Treasurer's Office for, homeowners, for farmers, as well as for businesses too. So there was a lot that was the good stuff that was shared there. We do have a lot of other different events that are coming up as we speak. But as far as our staple events are concerned, we are doing our Raven Awards, which will be held at the high school auditorium. on June the 7th. That is where we will recognize our typical award recipients, such as like the Lifetime Achievement Award, Citizen of the Year. We have added in, our high school seniors for our high school scholarship award. We do want to make sure that the youth are involved in it as well. Last year, we did also recognize Mr. Sullivan's civics class, which was great. I do plan on doing that again with Mr. Wonderly. So there's a lot that's going on there, as well as we do recognize our honorary way recipients for the previous year, in addition to like the new construction, renovation, all of that. So that will be going on then. We will have our Only in Ravenna. I think I had mentioned last time I was here that the Only in Ravenna event, we had to postpone that due to the Ravenna Rocks concert series. This last year, we have moved that back into the mid part of the summer, and that's gonna be July 15th. We do have our golf outing, which is August 25th. We are bringing back the Ravenna Rocks concert series. We're cutting that down just by one concert. We're gonna have 3 concerts for that. And the dates for that is June 17th, August 12th, and then October 7th, because I know Jim from the winery, he loves to have an Oktoberfest theme. That's been a dream of his, so we're keeping that going. We have a lot of people that are really wanting to step up and be a part of that committee. If you know of anybody that is looking to, I did send that out just publicly. We are having our first planning meeting on the 13th, March 13th, so by far feel free to attend that. You can attend via Zoom or in person, and that will be at 5:30 at the winery, okay? Halloween walk, still October 28th. And then the Ravenna Holiday Celebration, Midnight Madness, would be November 24th. So a lot of things are progressing and moving forward. A couple of things that have been added that, are definitely high points in my job is the day of service with the high school kids, where they shut down the high school. I want to say that that's May 13th, if I'm not mistaken. And then I also wanted to let people know too, is that just as how we have done with the Christmas time, with Harley Hall, he had brought his students down to paint the windows. He has suggested that we have them come down again to paint spring type, Festivus type, just good stuff on the windows as well as on the businesses. So when they do the senior parade through town, that will all be decorated in addition. So it seems like that they're wanting to get more involved, which is great. Chamber is also part of the intern program with Mr. Wonderly's class. And our time that we will have students at my office will be on March 20th, March 20th through the 30th. So a lot of things going on there. I think that's about it. If I missed anything, I apologize, but I think that is about it as of right now. Any questions? Anything?
I think right now, when did you say that senior parade might be? Is that usually the last?
I don't know exactly when the senior parade is. The day of service, where the kids come down to like clean up the town, and we always come down and see Mayor Frank and come down to City Hall and everything. I want to say that's May 13th.
Okay.
I want to say. I could be wrong on that, so don't quote me on that. But I can definitely get that information to you.
Typically, the parade is the weekend of graduation.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it would, first I want to say thank you very much for all that you guys are doing and promoting the city. You do great. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I think that it would be really nice if somehow council could support the seniors, maybe come up with something fun to do.
If you find out the date on
Yeah.
if there is a parade, let us
Yeah.
know.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And congrats on another ribbon cutting this morning.
Oh,
I
thank you.
saw that.
I apologize.
So-
Yes, that was one thing. That was huge. That was awesome. We did have a ribbon cutting this morning for Ravenna Nutrition, which looks like you're proudly supporting. The new owners are great, Rich and Ashley Wolford, and it's exciting to have them be a part of it. So they have a lot of great ideas. All right?
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
guys.
we have anyone else from the audience who'd like to speak?
Hello, my name is Mark Smith. People call me Mo. I came before and I wanted to make a announcement for maybe Jeff. It's a law concern. It's a public safety hazard that I want to suggest that's going on, and I've been circulating this. I tried to meet with you guys before and do a PowerPoint video in the meeting on the facts that how Black history is a public safety hazard. The way we teach it in the narrative is false and a fraud. And I'm gonna leave this here with you guys, so you can make copies or whatever. But I think it should be to the, well, I'm going on record and I'm live right here on Instagram. So with the police officers, they know the major crime that happens is from angry people. A lot of African Americans, so-called, which we are not African, we're American, but the history angers us. And they don't teach it to 52-year-old men, they teach it to children who don't have the reasoning of an adult. You teach a child that his parents has been raped, he's gonna grow up angry, and psychologically, we know this. But we continue to allow this narrative to happen in our communities. I don't know if it's a setup, I don't know. I'm not trying, I'm just trying to state the facts here. It looks very suspicious to allow the school and the news media to keep promoting that kind of history when it's not true. Alex Haley was sued for roots. There were 1,518 blacks in elected official positions in the South in 1865. Black Wall Street was burned down in 1920. When did it start? If it burned down in 1920, it had to start before then, right? How could you have a Juneteenth then? That's celebrating illiteracy. You celebrate Juneteenth, but not Tulsa? What type of narrative are you creating here? And in this city, I can't say, yeah, you guys aren't the world, but this is the city where you guys are city council and have power to say this is a public safety hazard like they did in Florida. Teaching Black history is why your prisons is full. It's why we gangbang. It's why we sell drugs. Get mad at your mom, I'm just gonna sell drugs then. Go to prison. We want that. Out of anger, you choose prison, I chose prison. You see my felonies. I have a lot, I can't even get a job, I can't work because of my felonies, because of anger. I was so angry, I chose prison. And I think that's a hazard, that's a public safety hazard for our children to continue to allow that. And I'm just going on record so people on Facebook and Instagram can see that I'm fighting for this. I support Florida. I support anybody who disagrees with Black History Month, any type of narrative, like a disgusting narrative that divides our country like that, angers our children and divides our country in half like that. And to allow it to continue and not stand up and fight for it, fight against it is just amazing to me. I know I'm 52, but I still feel like a child. I still feel like that's not right. If it's not right, stop doing it, right? Like common sense. But if you know it's not right and you keep doing it, it seems like you're doing it on purpose. Is that a fact? Either stop it or you're doing it on purpose. The school teaches Black History Month. My daughter, you can't say you don't because the COVID-19 had the computers in the kitchen, in the living room. You walk by and you hear the teachers what they're telling your children. It's all lies. Teaching the children that blacks were all oppressed by whites. Well, you might think that's, oh, okay, blacks need to hear that truth, but that's not the truth. That's just to get us to hate the whites. You don't see that they try to say it's Black History Month, but it's White Supremacy Month, and it gets us to hate the white community. It divides our country. You can't see that? I mean, you're a police officer, you investigate all the time. If you investigate, the investigation, you know the motive, you look for motive. What's the motive? And find all that, dude. It's a lie, it's a fraud, and then just stop. Is identity theft going on here? Our race has been identity theft. We don't even have an identity. They're lying about our identity. Either you're gonna do something about it or you're gonna stay. I don't know, it's 10,000 whites, 978 blacks. I mean, we might be a drop in the bucket as a population to prevent it. Either segregate us in allotments and give us a separate budget and give us a separate people, separate city, or change it so it can fit us. Change the narrative to a true narrative. The true narrative is here, I'm gonna leave it here. As I said, I got the true narrative. There was the black slave masters in America, if you didn't know. Black women were slave masters more than black men, and black men was way meaner slave masters than the white men. White men did more manumitting of slaves than black men, meaning freeing. They'd buy them to free them. White men did that. In the South, the Underground Railroad stuff is just some kind of fraud. That's a fraud. Because today, all our land, everybody up here looking for land, you know, we argue for land, our land, our land, our land. It's in the South. Everybody right now have land in the South. How could we been slaves in the South and all are today? Everybody today that's born my age has land titles in the South. It's impossible to be slaves and everybody was landowners. And 1,518 blacks was elected officials. I mean, come on, man. I'm just gonna leave this here. I don't know who to give it to. You can make copies, maybe frame it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
My name is Mark. They call me Mo. Hopefully y'all do something about it.
Thanks. Is there anyone else this evening? Lodato, I can turn it over to you.
Should I do my name and address for the record? Carmen Lodato, 222 Madison Street, here in Ravenna. I am just coming up here to speak on an ordinance that is on for third read tonight. It's ordinance number 2023-001. This has to do with the placement of solid waste collection and disposal. More colloquially, putting your trash cans and storing them in the front yard all the time. So I feel like this affects me personally because I live next door to somebody who perpetually keeps their trash cans out on the front yard. And not just against the house, sitting in the front. And we work very hard. I'm sure that Ms. Michael could tell you. Our house, we really take care of it. Always have everything set up nice with our flowers. And it just doesn't matter because no matter who drives by, it's like, oh my God, look at all this trash next door. We got a nice little group of skunks that enjoy it. And I would encourage this council to really pass something like this. And just to kind of pivot away from my personal problem and dilemma on Madison Street, and I've talked about this in Planning Commission, and it's about image and what type of image Ravenna wants to project. And I'm no idiot to the fact that Ravenna struggles with this image issue. And I don't see why, as a member of Planning Commission, that we spend a painstaking amount of time grilling businesses about how attractive their signs are and what kind of shrubs and trees they're gonna have and what kind of colors they're using, and then tell the residents, well, it's okay if you just wanna store your trash out in the front yard, that's fine. I feel like it's a contradiction to send a message like that. We also have a lot of programs in the county. I know that the CRC Housing Council promotes them. I know Brad Cromes has through the Portage County Treasurer's Office, where we encourage people, and I know in Ravenna this is a targeted audience, to take advantage of either low interest loans or have increases on their property taxes forgiven if they're gonna make improvements to their property, with the goal being making this a more attractive city. That's what those programs are intended for. So I feel like an ordinance like this shouldn't have any objection to it, because I feel it's in the spirit of what we're trying to do as a city, as a planning commission member, as our county treasurer, is for the beautification of the city. So I would encourage you, and hopefully that will be something that can get passed tonight, because I think that Ravenna has a lot of potential, and I think that these kinds of things are where you need to start getting people to clean things up. So that has to do with that. I also feel like maybe this isn't appropriate, and I really don't care, but I'm a social studies teacher, and I beg of you, I don't want the police involved in my classroom, and I don't want any of you involved in it either. And I think that if somebody's gonna make decisions about what's gonna be taught about anybody's history, they should start asking educators. And that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I will say, this is on for third reading, so, well, the trash can ordinance. So, something will happen this evening. So, is there anyone else that would like to speak this evening? If not, then everyone should have received the report of officials in their packet. Were there any questions, or any of either of the chiefs? Is there anything you wanted to highlight on either of those? If not, then do we have a motion to accept as submitted?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Committee meetings will be next week on March 13th, beginning at 6 PM with utilities. Mr. Moskin.
There will be nothing for committee next week.
And information systems, Ms. West.
I will have some items for committee next week.
Planning, Mr. Karas.
4 items on the agenda tonight, and we will have a meeting next week.
Committee of the Whole will be on Monday, March 20th, and I'll let the mayor speak to it later this evening, but I think he is planning on hosting the State of the City here. To be determined next week, whether that's at 6 PM or 5:30 PM. But he is planning on doing it on the 20th. But Public Health and Safety, Ms. Michael?
Yes, I do have several items on tonight's agenda, and at this time, I'm not sure, but usually we do have something, so.
Streets and Sidewalks, Mr. Harper?
We have one item for consideration this evening, and we will be having a meeting.
And Personnel, Mr. Calfee?
Yes, personnel will have a committee meeting this week.
Community and Economic Development, Ms. Wood?
We have a couple of items on the agenda tonight, and to be determined for committee, but I'm anticipating at least one item.
And any updates on the cemetery, Mr. Harper or Moskin, that you would like to cover?
Yes, he had set an amount of $31,000 for a partial amount of the cemetery to be resurfaced. It's because of its degradation over the years, mainly toward the entranceway, and then there'll be a small portion toward the back that's been needing to be done. The holes are quite deep, so after this is finished, then that'll make a drastic difference in those areas.
Pretty good.
Has there been any, a general question, on the Jason Kentner plans for the cemetery? Has there been any movement on that in the back? This was proposed probably a year or 2 years ago. I'm just curious on.
Yeah, the roads have been all surveyed. They're currently staked. Now it's just really about the money and
So there is the
getting
plan.
the foundation down so that we could put asphalt and so on to start to construct the road, so.
Okay.
It's just a slow process at this time with monies.
Was it still the scope of the project being, and I apologize, I'm taking us off rail here, but the boulevard idea, in the back where there's the trees lining the back, and then you had the pond off to the right, is that still being talked about?
The pond is currently in place.
Yes.
And the trees are still in the works to put a barrier across the back, correct, between the cemetery and the railroad. Yeah.
Andrew, were you referring to in the back where there'll be a couple rows of trees in the one area? Or
Yeah,
was it?
it almost looked like in the middle of the road, like it was a newly formed boulevard, trees lining the road, not necessarily along the railroad tracks, but going,
Okay.
I guess east to west it would be.
Part of that is, it's a it's an oval that
Yes.
will mirror the front oval.
Okay.
And that, again, it's all been surveyed. We're just trying to get the grindings and whatnot for the roads.
And then for the trees will be planted hopefully this year sometime. And that's been condensed somewhat from his original plans.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, I was just curious.
No, you don't know if you don't ask.
Yeah. Mr. Calfee, turn it over to you for Parks and Rec. Any updates there?
The update is about the Marlene Watt that's coming up, the 18th annual Marlene Watt 5K Run Walk this coming Saturday. Wanted to report to you that we have 23 corporate sponsors that have signed on to sponsor this event, about 70 participants, and it's Saturday. If you haven't registered and you'd like to, there's still time. On Saturday morning, you can do that. They have on the day registrations. The long-range weather forecast says it'll be a high of 33 that day. So we have no danger of any runner being overcome by the heat or any problem with that. So we're looking forward to it. And I do want to say, too, that in case you're not clear, when we say the Parks and Rec Youth Scholarship Fund, that's where all the money goes to. Those monies are used to provide funds for children to attend sports camps, sporting events, other activities in Parks and Rec that might not be able to pay for it themselves. And so it's a wonderful cause, and last year we raised thousands of dollars, and we hope to raise as much or more this year. So I encourage you to be a participant or an observer of this event coming up Saturday.
Well, with that, we'll move into first reading of ordinances, beginning with ordinance number 2023-32.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor to apply for the Staffing for Adequate Fire and Emergency Response SAFER grant to fund 3 full-time firefighters and accepting the grant if awarded and declaring an emergency.
This is sponsored by Public Health and Safety. Ms. Michael?
This is through the SAFER grant that we have applied for several times. However, I did see now Streetsboro was discussing that. Is that correct, Mr. Chappell?
Correct.
Which is Andrew and I had talked, Andrew had pointed out that, you know, it might be helpful to see other local people are also, because the numbers of the calls have increased. So this might be helpful in seeing that, you know, there is a need that is increased in this area. So that was kind of a positive thing when we saw that in the paper. So I'm hoping that this is something that we will receive. If not, this is something that we do need to continue on discussion for.
Any questions or comments from council? Hearing none, do we have a motion to waive the 3 separate readings?
So move.
Second.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Ms. Michael?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Mr. Karas?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
And then a motion to adopt the emergency clause?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Michael?
Yes.
Mr. Karas?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
And then a motion to pass the ordinance?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Ms. Michael?
Yes.
Mr. Karas?
Yes.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
That ordinance is adopted. The next item on the agenda is ordinance number 2023-33.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor to apply for the 2023-2024 Ohio EMS grant from the Ohio Department of Public Safety and declaring an emergency.
This is also sponsored by Public Health and Safety. Ms. Michael?
And this is also another grant that our fire department is going after. We did talk about this in committee. There is no match, correct? Any other discussion?
Hearing none, do we have a motion to waive the 3 separate readings?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Karas?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Ms. Michael?
Yes.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
Do we have a motion to adopt the emergency clause?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Michael?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Karas?
Yes.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
And then a motion to pass the ordinance?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Michael?
Yes.
Mr. Karas?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
If that ordinance is adopted, next item on the agenda is ordinance number 2023-34.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor to apply for the Safety Intervention Grant through the Ohio Bureau of Workers' Compensation, BWC, and declaring an emergency.
Also Public Health and Safety. Ms. Michael?
And as well, we talked about this in our committee. Was this the one that went hand in hand with the safety grant? Am I getting those mixed up?
No, that was the FEEG, the next one.
Okay, sorry. I have them two connected, so I didn't want to misspeak if that was incorrect. Okay, and this one was for,
Is it the Lucas?
yeah, the Lucas. It was for 22,000?
Correct. No, we wrote it for the 2 stair chairs and a Lucas, so it was.
It was around 22,000,
Correct,
correct?
yes.
Okay. Any
And-
questions?
Hearing none, do we have a motion to waive the three separate readings?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Ms. Michael?
Yes.
Mr. Cares?
Yes.
And do we have a motion to adopt the emergency clause?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Michael?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Mr. Cares?
Yes.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
And then a motion to pass the ordinance.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Michael?
Yes.
Mr. Cares?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
All right, that ordinance is adopted. The next item on the agenda is ordinance number 2023-35.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor to apply for the Exposure to Elements grant through the Ohio Bureau of Workers' Compensation, BWC, and declaring an emergency.
Ms. Michael, I'll turn it over to you again.
Yeah, this is the one that we have a remaining of $1,300 left.
17.
17, okay. Where did the 1,300 come from?
I don't know.
I don't know either. All right, I'm sorry. I had 1,300. Anyway, so yes, that is the remainder that we have left, and so we want to make sure that we go after that. Any other questions? And again, we talked in length about all of these items in committee, so I don't think there's much more detail to go over.
Hearing none, do we have a motion to waive the three separate readings?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Cares?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Ms. Michael?
Yes.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
And a motion to adopt the emergency clause?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Ms. Michael?
Yes.
Mr. Cares?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
And then a motion to pass the ordinance.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Michael?
Yes.
Mr. Cares?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
All right, that ordinance is adopted. Next item on the agenda is ordinance number 2023-36.
An ordinance accepting a donation of one Lucas device and one LifePak 15 cardiac monitor from an anonymous donor and declaring an emergency.
Also sponsored by Public Health and Safety, Ms. Michael.
Yes, and this is an anonymous donor and who we will continue to take anonymous. This is a wonderful gift, and this is something that had been promised a while ago, but we are now able to receive it. So this is going to be very valuable to our fire department. No match required.
Hearing no questions, then do we have a motion to waive the three separate readings?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Michael?
Yes.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Mr. Cares?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
And a motion to adopt the emergency clause?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Ms. Michael?
Yes.
Mr. Cares?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
And then a motion to pass the ordinance.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Cares?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Ms. Michael?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
All right, that ordinance is adopted. The next item on the agenda is ordinance number 2023-37.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor to accept the 2023 OCJS State of Ohio Body Worn Camera Grant Program in the sum of $7,347 and declaring an emergency.
Also sponsored by Public Health and Safety, Ms. Michael.
This is from our police department. This came in a little late, but when this opportunity came in, we took it, and I'm excited that our police officers are going after body cameras. It's a great opportunity, and it's, promoting safety. Any other additional comments, Jeff, on this?
No.
No additional match, correct?
No.
Any other questions?
Hearing none, do we have a motion to waive the three separate readings?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Michael?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Cares?
Yes.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
And a motion to adopt the emergency clause?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Michael?
Yes.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Mr. Cares?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
And then a motion to pass the ordinance.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Ms. Michael?
Yes.
Mr. Cares?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
All All right, that ordinance is adopted, and switching gears now out of public safety, moving on to ordinance number 2023-38.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with the State of Ohio Department of Transportation, accepting requirements associated with federal funding for resurfacing North Chestnut Street and South Prospect Street and declaring an emergency.
This is sponsored by Streets and Sidewalks. Mr. Harper?
Yeah, this is just saying that we will agree with ODOT's requirements and regulations for the resurfacing of those two streets.
Any questions on this item? Hearing none, do we have a motion to waive the 3 separate readings?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Ms. Michael?
Yes.
Mr. Cares?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
Do we have a motion to adopt the emergency clause?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Cares?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Ms. Michael?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
And then a motion to pass the ordinance.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Ms. Michael?
Yes.
Mr. Cares?
Yes.
All right, that ordinance is adopted. Next item on the agenda is ordinance number 2023-39.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor to advertise for bids according to law for the Meridian Street and Murray Avenue Waterline Project, according to specifications now on file in the mayor's office, and declaring an emergency.
And this is sponsored by Utilities. Mr. Moskin?
Yes. For these two streets that have been mentioned, Meridian and Murray, this will include not just the water line, but the service going into the property, as well as every hydrant within those perimeters. And I'll ask Mr. Finney if he has an approximate time when that might be started, just in general.
A contract would be awarded early July, as typical with OPWC. And then the contractor would order water pipe. That's gonna most likely be the factor determining when the project will actually start. Hopefully, August is our goal. If not, then as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other questions from council? Hearing none, do we have a motion to waive the 3 separate readings?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Ms. Michael?
Yes.
Mr. Cares?
Yes.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
And do we have a motion to adopt the emergency clause?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Michael?
Yes.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Mr. Cares?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
And then a motion to pass the ordinance.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Cares?
Yes.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Ms. Michael?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
All right, that ordinance is adopted. Next item on the agenda is ordinance number 2023-40.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with CT Consultants Incorporated for a wastewater treatment plant assessment and declaring an emergency.
And this is also sponsored by Utilities. Mr. Moskin?
Yes. There was a total of 4 different consultants looked at, and reviewed. CT was the best quality for this service. Both water treatment and wastewater treatment plants have used CT consultants for, I'll just say, several years. Been more than pleased with them. The assessment would include looking at not just at the department, but everything that is there, seeing what might need to be replaced in the near future, or might be able to be waited a few years or more going down the road. Not only that, they're hoping that this could be starting, when I say very soon, hopefully next month would be a goal, if not, shortly after. But Bill Brugant likes to keep up on things ahead. And another thing that just makes a big, CT Consultants is also great with writing grants if something needs to be done. That's a phrase, big ticket item, if it would come to that. So they're very precise into that as well.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
And generally speaking, just to clarify, this is an assessment to determine what the next steps would be for any improvements. Is that, am I understanding that correctly? I can ask Mr. Brigant too, at a later date.
Yeah, no, the intent is to have an overall assessment of the plant's operations and equipment, coupling that with the future EPA, the anticipated future EPA requirements. And it will give us a guideline of what needs fixed first, and then potential price tags associated.
Yeah, okay. Is there any questions from council, or any comments?
Where's the contract?
Do we have a current contract
We
on
don't
the
have a
CT?
contract. If you're comfortable, if you're not comfortable moving it forward, then we can put this on, move it to second reading for next month.
And I'm,
We'll have a contract for sure.
yeah, and I will say, I've spoken with Mr. Brigant, so this is not surprising to me that this is before council. So I'm in support of this. I think it's badly needed, taking the quick tour that I did, seeing it firsthand. So I would assume this is the kind of the first step to assess the needs, but I understand where you're coming from.
Well,
Point of,
I have no problem with the assessment or anything else. It's, as I mentioned at a previous special meeting, I just think it's a principled issue. I don't believe we're in a position to vote on a contract that doesn't exist. So
And-
just as a matter of principle, I will vote against passing this tonight.
and we do, if
It's fine to move it to second reading, move it on to second reading. We actually have a meeting with CT tomorrow. It's taken a week to, we thought we could have it ready. Obviously, we don't have it ready yet.
Is council okay with that? Leaving it here for
Yes,
second
well.
reading and then
Mhm.
picking it up? Okay. So no action on this item. Moving on to ordinance number 2023-41.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor to apply for the Certified Local Government CLG grant through the Ohio History Connection and declaring an emergency.
And this is sponsored by planning, Mr. Karas?
Yeah, so the everlasting discussion about hiring a consultant, going through an RFQ process to review our design review guidelines, design review code, and so forth. Bob was able to identify this particular grant, which would help us, if we got it, to pay for 60% of the $30,000 figure we included in the RFQ, meaning if we got the grant, the CLG would pay $18,000, and that would leave the city only having to pay $12,000. There's a companion to this ordinance following, which would be the contract, which is contingent upon getting this grant. So if we do decide to go in this direction, the maximum outlay by the city would be $12,000.
Any questions from council on this item? Do we
Yes,
have-
what,
Go ahead, sorry.
so when would the company be chosen?
Depending upon how long it takes to vote on this,
Okay,
about 2 or 3 minutes,
It'll be the
because it's the next ordinance.
next door, yeah.
okay.
So if we don't get the grant, if we don't receive the grant, then are we going to change the amount?
It's a good question. I think there's a couple of things we could engage the company Prospectus and pay the full amount. I don't know that many people are in favor of that, to be honest with you. We could just not do it, not contract with Prospectus. Or, as Bob has mentioned, we could go back to Prospectus and say, listen, let's narrow the focus and see if we can come to some
Right.
agreement. But as it stands tonight, everything is contingent upon getting the grant.
Okay.
So
yes.
what follows next depends upon whether or not we get the grant. And if we
Okay.
don't, we can reevaluate where we want to go from
Because
there.
I just want to make sure that this, what we're voting on, is for the $12,000 that would be out of pocket to the city, not the full amount. Because,
Right.
yeah, I do agree, there are things that are on there that aren't really probably needed as, you know, what we're looking for, and could be reduced drastically, I feel. I do feel that, you know, there definitely needs to be some things looked at, changed by an expert, because there have been changes through the years, and, you know, the historic preservation is very important to our downtown, and, but the amount that we're looking at, we're not, you know, we have something already established, so, yeah, I'm only comfortable on making sure that this amount is what I'm voting on.
And the grant is not a sliding amount, it is, we're actually applying for 18,000, so,
With our match being 40%, being 12,000.
okay. Because I just vaguely remember when you first brought it to us, it was like possible that they could give us 5,000.
It's my understanding, if we ask for 18, we either will get it or we won't get it at all.
Any other questions from council?
And just so we're clear, we're applying for 30,000, that's the grant, and then it's the breakdown, that's 60/40. And if we don't get it for 30,000, we don't get it.
If there's no other questions then, do we have a motion to waive the 3 separate readings?
So moved?
Second.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Ms. Michael?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Mr. Karas?
Yes.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
Do we have a motion to adopt the emergency clause?
So moved?
Second.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Ms. Michael?
Yes.
Mr. Karas?
Yes.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
And then a motion to pass the ordinance.
So moved?
Second.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Ms. Michael?
Yes.
Mr. Karas?
Yes.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
All right, that ordinance is approved. The next item on the agenda is ordinance number 2023-42.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Perspectus for design review consulting contingent on the award of the Certified Local Government CLG grant and declaring an emergency.
And there's just, what paragraph is that? So I can point it out. Section 1, there's just a typographical error, that's all. So, should be an N,
Oh.
contingent on the award. that's all.
Contingent O,
So,
the award?
Yeah.
We'll
Small
consider it
error.
Old English or something. Oh,
There's,
yeah, so this is the second part of this. This is the actual engaging of Perspectus as the consultant for this purpose. And we discussed this at the committee meeting, and the committee moved forward choosing Perspectus, and then, well, no, actually, I take that back. We decided we weren't going to vote. We would pass it on to the committee of the whole because there was sort of diversity of opinion upon this. So at the committee of the whole, we did vote, and it was a majority vote that we choose Perspectus. The other consultant was CT Consultants. And it was the Design Review Commission's desire that we choose Perspectus as well.
for council members, is there any questions or comments on this item?
Do I have a question? Do we have a copy of the contract?
It's part of the ordinance. Whereas the Design Review Commission and so forth. Mr. Semina prepared that. I'm just saying you prepared that part.
I'm just asking about the actual contract.
They don't have it yet.
Well, no, this is the contract. That's the wording of the contract, correct?
Well, this would, you know, it says it's contingent, so obviously the grant is required to be obtained in order to move forward with the contract. As far as the actual contract, it is not attached here, but there is a contract that we can provide to you.
So there's a current contract with Perspectus then? So-
I guess my question,
Yeah, it goes to mine.
Rob, goes to your question previously, and just confirming that we do have that contract, which you'd asked about in the
Well,
previous
I
thing.
had forwarded what I considered the contract wording to Mr. Semino, and I thought he had just boiled it down to these three whereas statements, in the therefore state.
Okay,
So I mean, that is
okay.
the contract in a sense, but I get your point.
We do, is this an immediate action that's needed, or is this something, we have a special, I believe, at the 20th, so that's the only reason I'm looking out.
We have to apply
Well-
for a grant,
Yeah.
correct?
Well, we've
Yeah,
Keep in
approved,
mind,
Yeah.
we haven't negotiated with them yet. The first step was the financial end of it. Once, hopefully, we're successful with the CLG grant, city council has the 40%, then we're gonna negotiate with them and potentially add to the scope for that much or subtract the scope, because there were some things
Right.
as part of what they had originally submitted that may fit or may not fit.
So there really is not a contract that we could even really be voting on, correct?
No.
No.
This could-
Well,
So-
first of all, maybe I misunderstood. Do we need the need to vote on approving a contract in order to apply for the grant?
At this point, we do not
Okay.
need to authorize the mayor to enter a contract with Prospectus
Okay, to get the grant.
to get the grant, that is
Okay.
correct.
Okay, that's why I was pushing this part forward, because I thought it was.
No.
The second part is, we can always have a contract that's contingent upon a grant, and if we don't get the grant, we don't have the contract. I mean, it doesn't have to have one precede the other.
We-
But I think the best thing, if we don't need this part, is to leave it on.
and that's
for
my
another
question,
We
yeah,
can
the logistics
Move
of
it
it.
to second reading.
Yeah, okay.
Is council okay with that? Is there any- Okay. So we will leave this here for second reading. Moving on to, did I have that right? Oh, ordinance number 2023-43.
An ordinance authorizing the appropriation of $50,000 from the Home RLF Fund for Habitat for Humanity of Portage County to renovate the property located at 413 Lincoln Street, Ravenna, Ohio, and declaring an emergency.
I grew up across the street from this, so I'm pretty excited. This is sponsored by Community and Economic Development, Ms. Wood.
Thanks, Andrew. I'm pretty excited about it, too. It's another opportunity to help improve a residential property within the city and provide housing for a well-earned family. So we are partnering with Habitat by approving this $50,000 home funds to go towards the complete renovation that they will be doing for 413 Lincoln. It will include testing for possible asbestos, lead, basically taking the property down to the studs and foundation and rebuilding. So,
Is there any questions from council on this item? And if you drive by, Habitat did the house, I believe, 2 lots down already.
next door.
So there's an empty lot currently.
Yes.
And then one next door that they already did, so, yeah. If there's no questions from council then, do we have a motion to waive the 3 separate readings?
So moved.
Second?
Ms. Michael?
Yes.
Mr. Karas?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
And a motion to adopt the emergency clause?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Ms. Michael?
Yes.
Mr. Karas?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
And then a motion to pass the ordinance?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Ms. Michael?
Yes.
Mr. Karas?
Yes.
All right, that ordinance is adopted. We'll move on to second reading of ordinances, beginning with ordinance number 2023-19.
An ordinance amending the codified ordinances of the City of Ravenna, Ohio, Part 14, Building and Housing Code, Title 8, Housing and Property Maintenance Code, Chapter 1462, Smoke Detection and Alarm Devices.
And this is sponsored by Planning, Mr. Karas.
Yes, so this is on second reading because this and the next ordinance was still undergoing a few changes to the language. But what you have in front of you tonight is what we consider the final version. And really all we're doing is adding CO2 detection to the chapter on alarm services like smoke alarms and so forth. So, yeah, the language is in front of you. It's pretty simple. We just added CO2 devices.
Any questions on this item? And this will stay for third reading?
It doesn't, I mean, we could vote on it tonight, we could leave it, it doesn't matter. What's your preference? Bob,
We
do
all
you
right
have a
with-
preference?
And there's no reason not to move it forward.
It's
Uh,
not,
Anyone?
it sounds like it's not an emergency, but it'd be good to.
There is,
going.
yeah, there is no emergency clause
No.
for either one of these. But I'll move to waive the final reading.
Do we have a
Second, let's move it on, sure.
Mr. Karas?
Yes.
Mr. Calfee?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Ms. Michael?
Yes.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
And no emergency, so we just need a motion to pass the ordinance?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Calfee?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Ms. Michael?
Yes.
Mr. Karas?
Yes.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
All right. That ordinance is adopted. Thanks for your work on that too, Rob. Next item on the agenda is ordinance number 2023-20.
An ordinance amending the codified ordinances of the City of Ravenna, Ohio, Part 14, Building and Housing Code, Title 8, Housing and Property Maintenance Code, Chapter 1478, Basic Equipment and Facilities by adding Section 1478.10, Carbon Monoxide Detectors.
This is also sponsored by Planning, Mr. Karas?
Yeah, so this is just the second part of our code where we more clearly define what a common carbon monoxide detector is, and the fact that rental units need to have them. So again, the wording is before you. This is more brand-new code replicating what we have for smoke alarms and so forth. And, yeah, no reason to put off voting on this either.
Is there any questions from council on this?
And this doesn't have to mean emergency.
There's no emergency clause with this, so if we pass it tonight, it'll still take 30 days to go into effect. But there's no further refinement of the language and
No.
no need
Just
to
get it
put
out.
off voting on it tonight. If that's okay.
Do we have a motion to waive the three separate readings? Or did you
So
want to add
Just real-
something? Sorry.
just Real quick, Don and I, Don Rose, who penned most of this, and I have discussed, we will give the rental properties 2 years to come into compliance. So in 30 days, when we do a rental inspection, we'll approve as noted. And the note is, next cycle, they will be required to have a CO detector.
Okay.
We're gonna give them time, but we're gonna notify them that it's necessary.
Thanks. All right. So do we have a motion to waive the three separate readings?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Michael?
Yes.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Calfee?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Mr. Karas?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
And then do we have a motion to pass the ordinance?
So move. Second.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Calfee?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Ms. Michael?
Yes.
Mr. Karas?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
All right, that ordinance is adopted. The next item on the agenda is ordinance number 2023-24.
An ordinance placing a temporary moratorium not to exceed 1 year on the issuance of permits through the planning, zoning, and building departments for approval of storage units, storage facilities, storage pods, and self-storage establishments in the city of Ravenna, Ohio, and declaring an emergency.
And this is sponsored by Community and Economic Development. Ms. Wood, do you want me to, do you want to take this, or should I ask the mayor to take it?
You can ask the mayor if he wants to speak on it. This was brought to CED through Mr. West, the Economic Development Director, through discussions that he had had with the mayor. You know, I'm very familiar with it. We discussed it before he brought it to committee. Put a temporary moratorium on any building of storage facilities at this point in time for no more than 1 year. My personal feeling on it, we have discussed and are continuing to discuss a comprehensive plan which would help set out how we want the city to look in the future. And this is something certainly that would be a part of that. I do feel that the moratorium temporarily is a good benefit until we have something drawn up as a comprehensive plan to move us forward. Just my opinion. Mayor, your thoughts on this?
Well, I think Dennis, our Economic Development Director, was asking for this because we don't have a lot of land for economic development. And these sorts of buildings take a lot of land. but they operate with maybe one or two people, workers that you have. So his concern is until we get a handle on, and the comprehensive plan is part of that, he'd like to see a moratorium on this, which they've done in Streetsboro, I believe. I'd like to see it in place to protect what property might be used for a higher level type of business.
I don't think the Streetsboro moratorium was on storage facilities, though.
No, it's on car washes and
Hotels or
hotels.
something like that. Yeah, and I think it's, when I looked through our code, there was like one thing related to storage units, and it wasn't really very informative. We should look at what our zoning code says about how to make sure we plan, as you said, for how we distribute this type of thing throughout the city. Currently, I think we have two, and they're fairly close to each other. And that's probably not good planning.
That's where a comprehensive plan would be very beneficial to us.
Is there any comments, questions on this ordinance that's in front of us? Do we have a motion to waive the 3 separate readings, or do we want to leave this here?
I think we should go ahead and move forward. I'll make a motion to waive the 3 separate readings.
One second.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Karas?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Ms. Michael?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
There is an emergency tied to this. So do we have a motion to adopt the emergency clause?
So moved.
Second?
Ms. Michael?
Yes.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Mr. Karas?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
And then do we have a motion to pass the ordinance?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Michael?
Yes.
Mr. Karas?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
All right, that ordinance is adopted, and our final ordinance of the evening, which kicked off the year, which is 2023-001.
An ordinance amending the codified ordinances of the City of Ravenna, Part 10, Streets, Utilities, and Public Services Code, Title 6, Other Public Services, Chapter 1060, Solid Waste Collection and Disposal, Section 1060.10, Maintenance of Containers, and declaring an emergency.
And this is sponsored by Public Health and Safety. Ms. Michael?
Yes, as many of you know, it's been an ongoing battle in our community, and this is to help assist our building department, and also a small step, putting our neighborhoods first and cleaning up our neighborhoods. So, I don't think there's really much left to really discuss about this item. You're either for it or you're not.
And this is on third. Is there any comments, questions from council members?
I mean, I'm not against this, but my question is, how easy will it be to enforce this?
Well, and real quick, I want to jump in because I think I was questioning this at the outset, but if it's going to help your department to enforce what's out there, then I'll speak for myself. I'm in favor of this ordinance, I think, moving forward. So if this is something that's coming from building department, it's going to help to enforce the issue. I know there are some, will it, won't it, make a difference on the ordinance, but I think if this is going to bolster, your ability to enforce it.
I think
then-
you're going to make most of your residents very angry. Those folks who have a garbage can in the front of their garage, and I drove down a street today, and it's any street in Ravenna, I don't remember exactly. Washington, it was Washington, straight down from my office. You see garbage cans everywhere, and they're not untidy. They're just sitting there in front of the. So when we start issuing violations, the finger's getting pointed at you guys. We're gonna enforce the ordinance that you guys proposed. And I guess the next question is, what's the penalty gonna be? So I find it, I'm betting 80% of the residents have their garbage cans sitting out front.
So you're saying you're against
Drive
this
down
ordinance right now?
Washington and look,
Now you
I
guys are
see-
against it. When you
I see-
brought it, Dan came and we've talked about it at length, and at the last hour, you are now saying that you're against it.
I don't remember it played out that way. I don't
I
remember.
do.
Well, it's
I don't
recorded,
remember
so we
the-
can review it. I mean, this is
Yeah.
all recorded, but I think Don was sitting right there when we asked the question.
Absolutely.
Is this gonna help or hinder your apartment? And you Don said.
Okay,
That it would help.
You didn't correct them.
So I think that's where I'm leaning. When I say the mayor, it might not be Frank the person, but it is the administration as the whole, when I refer to it in that matter. So when I say you, your department, as the head of the department, Don came in, he said this would help, that's where I'm coming from.
Right,
If it's a
and-
suggestion, I'm gonna follow your lead, you're on the ground.
And you
So-
did say that part of the problem is there's no enforcement. I mean, we have no ordinance that states where the trash can be placed with all of the problems that we've had with the placements of the trash cans. And it also stated from you that, well, we're not gonna go after all these places that don't have problems. This is going to help us with the ones that we have the habitual problems with the trash. That is the problem. So that's on record too. So now it's like you're turning a completely different page here.
I
What I
don't think that Don is gonna go out, and if a trash can is clean, tidy, and there's no trash or rubbish around it.
Right, why would you?
And it's set in front of the garage, I don't think he would issue a warning or a citation. That's not the purpose of this. The purpose of this is ones that have it in the front yard, leave it on the devil strip, the tree lawn.
Has trash everywhere,
Trash
leaves
on
it
the
there.
ground. And I think also that he would only investigate complaints rather than just purposely looking for cans in front of people's property,
Right.
was my
Right,
understanding.
That's exactly how.
My concern is not who we have in place to enforce it now. I mean, obviously, Don, Bob's department currently is going to take this and they're going to read it and interpret it and address the problem situations that we're talking about. My concern is if we have different people in those positions down the road, but this is the written legislation, and somebody takes it and this is how it's written, so this is what I'm doing, and they go out and they start citing people that have their cans neat and tidy and not trash all over the place. That's where my concern is. We can't guarantee that any one of us are gonna be here for the next 50 years. And so how do we protect the future of the legislation? We know what our current people would do and how they would handle it. But we have to look as if those people were not in those positions, then how's it going to be handled? And I think we're creating a problem where our current ordinance actually does speak to trash not being properly in receptacles and not being picked up in cans without lids, and all of the things that we're seeing and that are our complaints, that's already in our current ordinance. It just needs enforced more. This isn't going to change that. Putting the can in front or in the side isn't going to change that.
We in council, though, do have the right to amend and change ordinances as well. So by putting something in place, I feel is better than nothing, and.
We do have it in place and it's not enforced. Obviously, if we're having the issues we are, and we've all seen the problem places.
Well, I feel trash cans do not belong in the front of the house with trash in them exceeding, I mean, it's
No, it shouldn't
terrible.
be exceeding. The lid should fit on tight, but our ordinance specifically states that.
Well, just to refresh, because this has been going on
It's
for
been
quite a
going on
while.
for years, and it's
But
ridiculous.
we do have, the current status of our ordinance does describe placing your receptacles when they're not being collected as far away from the street, as far away from the neighbors as practical. When we discussed it, we agreed, and I think the workers in Bob's area agreed that it's too vague to really enforce, and I think we went down this road to make it more defined. I don't disagree that this could certainly open up a can of worms when citations go out. The only other point I wanted to make is the penalty is $250 or in 30 days in jail on the first offense, and then it doubles on subsequent offenses.
Yeah, that seems quite stiff.
It does.
It does, but
And
that's
that
what it
wasn't-
is.
And that wasn't the intent when we did this,
Yeah.
and that was not why we did this, and that, like I said, we had work sessions, we had Dawn here, and like Andrew said, point blank, it was stated to us, what can we do to help you? And that's why this has gone on for so freaking long of an ordinance, and
The specific, we were talking about a specific property on South Diamond Street. I believe that's when
Well,
Don
there's
said
multiple, but that got it going,
that
and that was a
it
hot
it
mess.
would definitely help those situations.
Right.
And I agree, it would clean up the neighborhoods to a point, but what I've noticed with a 50-foot wide lot and a blue, green, whatever color recycle can that's 4 foot tall, you don't hide those. You can't hide those on the side of your garage. And again, the houses are so close together, often close together, there's a trash can, everybody has it. So even if it's on a corner of the garage and you drive by, it looks like it's in the front of the house because it's right there. And my point is, it's very difficult to be successful. If we're gonna have an ordinance, we're gonna have to enforce it. We should not pick and choose what we enforce. We get a call, there's trash on a tree lawn. We investigate. People often will say, well, my trash is picked up on Friday and it's Monday. So what do? We have to let it wait until they get the garbage picked up. I mean, that's the way
Actually,
it rolls.
the ordinance also says they can only put it out a day before.
Right.
And it has to be gone. Yeah,
But
I know what you're talking about.
It's not realistic.
Yeah, I know what
It's
you,
not, it's, you know, and then if we have to call the garbage company to come pick it up, how often do they do that?
yeah,
They don't wanna
yeah.
do it. It's.
They won't come into town just for specifically that.
Right, so it might sit there for a few days before they send a particular truck that can pick those things up.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah,
that's my-
enforcement is gonna be a nightmare.
I mean, we have nightmares with a lot of enforcements. This isn't anything
So-
different.
I'm more concerned with the 99% of the trash cans that are in an orderly manner.
But do you think
than I
a lot
am
of
that
it
one.
is because people don't know, I mean, think it's okay to have trash out? I mean, they don't know that it's any different, or?
Is it something we could put as a reminder in the water bill?
I mean, you know, if we're trying to promote nice, like, just like Carmen actually said it wonderful. I mean, you know, we're trying to set standards in our city, in our downtown, but why not our neighborhoods? Why are we not trying to set standards in our neighborhoods?
Yeah, yeah. I feel a little hung out to dry here because I thought we were on the same page for the past 3 months, and now
Yeah,
here we
me
are
too.
Well,
last minute.
Absolutely.
I'm not
How do you
opposed to
feel?
passing this. I do sometimes think we are missing the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is, we should have a single hauler in the city, so we know when
I support that
people.
completely.
Yeah, I've always supported it too. We've shied away from it when residents who have a certain company complain that we're gonna not give them choice or whatever.
I
But it would lower the cost for residents.
For right now, what's in front of us, though, can you just, I'm not going down.
I didn't mean to go off on that.
Do we or do we not have enough on the books right now that your department has to enforce? That what could be some of those issues that arose on that one particular location? Do we have enough on the
We
books
do,
that you have?
and we have. And-
Okay.
And
So
Don
now
has
you're
met.
saying you do?
Well, not from a placement standpoint. Don has asked them to relocate. So basically,
Suggestion,
John would
kinda.
leave them alone.
Yeah.
It worked for a month, and then it's not working anymore.
Okay.
So we will continue to work with them. Again, my biggest concern is the 99% of the folks. And then that, yes, maybe somebody drags it up and sticks it in front of the garage and they walk in the house.
I think,
And I don't think that the placement so much of the can, as long as the can is closed tightly, there's not trash
When I-
pushing out of it, overflowing out of it and all over the yard and scattered, is more the issues. I get that. I know exactly the issues that we've seen on some of these properties.
how
but
long
it's-
had that been issued going along? I think, I agree with you because I think then it's just the response time to that, because I think if there's enough on there, this was our response. We're 4 months that we've been talking about this now, and the fact that that's, ongoing and ongoing, that particular property, there's no reason that it should have been going on. So
But yeah,
what
it's
can we do to,
multiple.
what can we do to speed up the process then? If this isn't the answer, and I know it's not summer, and maybe I'm wearing flip-flops too early, but if this isn't the answer, what is it? How do we take care of those situations when we get those requests from constituents or residents? Do we send them up then to City Hall then that they should be calling?
Does the mayor have an opinion on this? I mean, ultimately, he enforces what the building department does. I mean, Where are we with this?
And a penalty would have to be established that's not overbearing, and then,
Shouldn't be this hard to freaking keep your neighborhoods clean and have some type of
Yes.
standards.
And-
This is ridiculous.
and the comment was
We
made.
have the standards in place. This particular ordinance change is specifically the placement of trash cans.
Right.
That's it.
It is.
The rest of the ordinance is already in place to clean up the rest of the garbage that's out there and the people not taking care of their properties. I still feel strongly that there are properties that are corner properties that you're gonna have an issue with trying to put the cans somewhere else. Or in the wintertime, maybe not this winter because we haven't been buried in snow like we normally are, but there are times in the winter where it is going to be next to impossible for some of our residents to try to put their cans behind the front property
But
line.
we're, like I said, we're not like out there stalking
But we can't
people.
say, this is our rule, but these guys can make an exception to it. Instead, we have to look at, it's gotta be a rule across the board for everybody. And if it can't be, then we shouldn't be putting the rule in place. Let's look at it in a different way.
Again, this was to help enforce the building department and the multiple problems that we've had. And I can assure you, I have called multiple times on these problems personally. And as all of the neighborhoods that I've seen that have these, I don't know that there's enough manpower probably to, I just don't know what type of guidelines we're setting, so. I'm kind of done talking about this. I'm very frustrated on the change from the building department, on how I feel like you've completely changed the whole way that we've talked about this. So I guess I'm holding you accountable for all this.
I think there's a misunderstanding. There was a point when I stated there could be a fence on corner lots if you wanted to force it. But the more I drive the streets, the more I see 2 garbage cans, 1 trash can and 1 recycle can. And the recycle cans are not pleasant to look at, as bright as they are. I'm not sure why the recycling center did that, but in any regard, they just stand out. You can't not see them when you drive down the road. There they are. And if you could require people to put them in their garage, that'd be great. But I know we can't do that.
No.
No. What if you don't have a garage?
Right, I mean,
Yeah.
you can't
Exactly.
force people to, I
So-
understand that, but I'm looking at it as a health issue. I mean, I can go through other communities that might be wealthier, but it shouldn't make a difference if they're wealthier. You don't see any of this in their communities. Just because we may not be as a wealthy community, doesn't mean we should have not have the same higher standards.
Yeah, wealth makes no difference.
It does not.
No, but we
and it's
have to keep in
frustrating.
mind, there's a difference between the receptacle itself and the placement and the trash that should be in a receptacle. There's a big difference. And a lot of the problem is not the receptacle itself sitting in front of a property. It's the trash that is overflowing and strewn throughout the property that is the eyesore, not the cans sitting where it's located. Regardless, those same people can put their cans behind the front building line of their property, but they're still gonna have the trash thrown throughout the yard. So we need to address the trash, not the receptacle.
Well, and that's where I keep coming back. It's more of an enforcement issue, not what's on
I
there.
mean, I think one of the things we need to do is look at the wording of the changes. It does say it needs to be behind the front of the property. We don't use the term building line. But it also goes on to say corner lots are permitted to use fencing to screen their receptacles upon approval from the building department. And then the final statement says additional receptacle locations may be determined by the service director. There may be enough loopholes in here, to avoid too many, which really is ironic because then we're back to where we were when we started.
And if you say a fence, then people will say, well, I'm not spending the money on a.
Well, that's true.
Well, like I said, we've gotten this far. I'm just very disappointed that we've gotten this far and now. Yeah, no, we haven't voted, but it's like, you're almost, they have it now, like they're gonna go out and attack, people that shouldn't be attacked because
But if that trash can sits in front of the garage, they're in violation if you pass this ordinance. I cannot, again, I can't pick and choose because their trash can is clean. And as Cheryl said, if it's overflowing and the lid doesn't fit, that's a violation. We'll send them a violation.
I don't want to get,
placement of the trash can isn't
I don't want to get too off topic, but there is ordinance on the books about parking. So are we going to enforce that across the board?
We
then?
are actually. And Don is actually writing parking tickets. He's trying, and it's a long process.
Right.
And
You know about tree lawn parking?
Tree lawn, exactly, yes, yeah. We are trying to do that.
Well, Amy, I apologize, because I thought we were making headway here. But if it's not needed, if this is the stance, I think that's the key takeaway. It sounds like, and you correct me.
After a year of talking, I mean, how?
Then go to vote and we'll.
Well, I think
I
that
mean-
it
We'll deal with
deserves,
it then.
it deserves a vote, but if nothing else, I think it's taking it back to committee for discussion, but I hate saying that. But it's on for third reading, so usually when it's here for third reading, it's either process or we needed to work out some items, and I thought we did, so. Is there anything else you want to say, Ms. Michael? before-
I'd like to hear from the mayor.
Obviously, we're all around it. I think of one house over in the corner of Highland and Sycamore, who all four sides are open. They've got an alley on one side, they've got the front yard, they've got an empty lot, so the other side is open, and it's open from the back. Now, but we know where the front of the house is. As far as I'm concerned, it's on Highland Avenue. With that, and those trash cans there are sitting right in front of the house. That's where they are, and I think that's probably a multi-unit rental. So now you're gonna have to find places for 3 sets of trash cans for that. First of all, I heard the fine is $250.
30 days.
I know, right?
That's
I mean,
quite
ridiculous.
excessive.
I think that has to be looked at.
Absolutely.
Because I don't think that's appropriate to get this thing started.
Well, that's for everything in that chapter, not just for the placement
No.
of your
Yeah.
We're not
can. I
planning,
mean, that's-
just so you know, Diane, to put people in jail for that. I mean, that's not anything, I mean, that's just
Send
in
them to
general.
trash.
It just seems to me like there's loose ends with this. And, but it's starting to look like making a decision in design review.
It's forever.
It's a never-ending story with this. So I think that the goal, generally speaking, is to make the city more attractive. That's the bottom line with this. It's very hard to do with a blue trash vehicle. Mr. Finney said appropriately, they're like beacons when they're sitting, and I don't care where they are. I keep mine at the side of the house, and I try and hide them with a set of steps. But you're still gonna see the top of the blue one if you're looking up through there. And that's almost clear to the back of my house with that. I'm concerned with trying to approach the problem, but don't throw the baby out with the wash water. We have a lot of places, and you know if the place is kept up, the grass is cut, and everything else is there, that thing isn't quite as offensive. We have people that move pretty regularly in the city of Ravenna, and anymore, when they move, because there's a Davenport sitting out on the curb waiting to be picked up, hopefully. sometimes they move and don't make arrangements for that, then we have to send somebody to take care of that. We spend a lot of money on, take the trees, for instance. We've spent a lot of money on getting trees taken care of so that they aren't a danger to the people that are on the sidewalks. So there is a type of enforcement there, and there's a process where we identify the problem with that, and if it's the responsibility of the home person, we get a hold of them and ask them to take care of the tree. If it's on the Devil Strip, the city takes care of it, or if it impinges at all on there, we go out and we take care of it. That's a little easier to do, although I'll tell you, there's a lot of trees in the city of Ravenna, and I signed those removals, and you'd be surprised at how many there are that have aged. I truly don't know whether if we just pass this ordinance stating that they have to be set back from the front, that wouldn't necessarily mean the garage would be a problem. Some of the garages sit to the back of the lot. Some of the garages and some of the others are in front of the front line with that. So it leaves a lot of room for interpretation with this. I personally would not want to enforce a rule that charged $250
unless
for that.
it's
So I
needed.
think that's something we need to look at. I just think of the neighborhood I'm in. On trash day, it looks like we were invaded. And by the way, speaking of trash, we are going to have the spring cleanup. I'll forget to tell you that. Kay's got it scheduled. We had one bidder on that. And possibly that may help some of these places get rid of stuff that it's difficult for them to get rid of with that. I'll be honest with you, with the cost that we're gonna hand out as a penalty, and I think just saying they have to be behind the line, it is not the real problem. It's the mess that's around them with that. I guess I'm anal about that. I not only put it in the bag, but it's inside of bags inside of bags, so that if they fall out, the animals can't get to them. And on Freedom Street, if they fall into the street, you know they're gonna get hit by a car with that. So we go the extra mile. My wife gets mad at me about that, but I don't want to cause a problem in the street. Lots of times when those things go out, you don't know what's in them, and you sure don't want to drive over with that sort of thing.
I think you made the point that, and I was going to ask you point blank, if you were on council, what would you do? But it sounds like we don't need it. You're not for it, generally speaking, as it's written right now. I don't think.
We'll have to take the blame there. The enforcement will have to step it up.
Well, and I think what is going to be the key takeaway from this conversation that I don't want is that council sitting here trying to fine people $250 and send them to jail for trash.
No.
I think generally speaking, looking forward to the comprehensive plan. This doesn't change the vote for some members on council where I knew they stood, but I think advocating for a vote that this may fail, I think is in the best interest to say that council took a look at this ordinance. We made some recommended changes, and those recommended changes then were voted down by council. I would advocate for council to vote right now, as it's written, against this, to then have a conversation, again, apologize, but back in committee, so that generally speaking, council is against the $250, the 30 days in jail. But I just want that kind of out there, so.
And I just want to say, for the record, I'm very disappointed that we come to this final hour. I feel very betrayed by the administration. I feel that this has had over a year to be talked about and emailed, and I've actually made phone calls. And now it's a complete 360 of what was talked about. And my main goal was to help residents that have been suffering from living in terrible situations. And when I'm told by the building department that they need help, I do my job, and to try to create an ordinance is what I'm elected to do. To make an ordinance, to create ordinances, to listen to complaints. And now I'm being told that the ordinances that we have worked our butt on, myself and the rest of my committee, is not gonna, that we're gonna be, causing problems. We're gonna be, creating a problem. When in fact, this was put out there to help clean up our community. And I'm very upset, and I'm putting it on record. I will be watching. I will be calling the office, and I do not want to hear that it's a placement issue, because I will be on it again. So, Larry, you have a question?
Larry Selenius, 123 North Lawrence. Two questions. We out here do not have the wording that you're debating. So I'm wondering simply, does it say behind the front building line or lines? Or does it not mention building lines?
Well, I don't want to get into what's in the weeds here, because it sounds like council is going to vote against this. So I can get you the wording after the meeting.
Well, my point is very simple. Can't everybody on every lot keep their cans behind the building line or lines, even if they're on a corner lot? Seems to me, the other consideration you're talking about, the fine, isn't that a maximum fine? presume the
Maximum, I
law
believe,
says
was
up to-
500.
Correct, that's correct.
Well, that's on a subsequent offense.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't give a minimum.
So we find, wait, no, wait, it just says fine not more than $250.
I think
Or
fines
not
would
more
be at the
than 30
discretion
days.
of the judge,
Right,
right?
exactly.
And how many people do we actually find or get money from?
Rarely. I mean, you send a bunch of enforcement letters, and then when it gets to a point, that's when it goes to.
Should make a motion.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't. that's
Any
my
other
opinion.
comments before we?
I guess I did want to make a comment. I am in favor of trash cans being behind the front building line. I think that's okay. I think that's all right to request that. I think it's something that we can accomplish. I do believe that there are a myriad of problems with corner lot, what's the front of the building, those things. But in general, the idea of we can move them behind the front of the building line, I'm in favor of. The wording in this ordinance, though, where it talks about what that line actually is, I'm a little concerned about that, and how we handle corner properties. I would suggest and would think if we would just designate the front is one, don't worry about a corner lot having two fronts. That front line from the front main part of the house is the front line. It has to be around the corner. I'd be okay with that, but there's lots of complications in the ordinance as written.
Carmen, go ahead, since you came to speak on this.
Thank you.
If that's okay, Andrew.
And I'd like an opportunity to just make it crystal clear, my comments. I don't care if there's no trash in it. Keeping trash cans in the front of your house, and forgive the redundancy, is trashy. It just is. You don't drive through better communities. You don't drive through a Chagrin Falls or a Hudson and see that sort of thing. And I realize that we're not these communities, but it's been stated before that wealth shouldn't be the determination of those things. I mean, everybody has room on the side of their house, up against your house, in your garage. And I know you can get to the discussion about the single hauler, and I realize that's an issue. Everybody has a different trash day, so things are gonna be out no matter what, and that is a different discussion. But I'm not sitting out in the audience, and my comments before were not that we're an issue of placement. It is an issue of placement. And if it needs to go back, I know there's a few other ordinance that you had on tonight clarifying language when it has to do with the carbon monoxide. So if it's easy to do something like that, clarify language in our codes about alarms and carbon monoxide alert systems, then clarify something then about property lines. Have it delineated in there what exactly you mean by the building line, the front yard, and make those exceptions on a corner lot. This is where you can keep these things placed. But the discussion shouldn't turn into, well, it's only a problem to have trash cans in the front of your house all the time if it's not overflowing with trash. Because to me, it's the appearance of the trash cans to begin with placed there. It looks terrible. And you gotta start somewhere in these cities. And like I said, as from a planning commission perspective, we give businesses an awfully hard time about where everything's gonna go, and we are keeping in mind aesthetics. We don't say, well, how would we feel if the businesses keep dumpsters in front of their businesses? And we say, well, as long as it's not overflowing and there's not a bunch of trash coming out, we're okay with it. No, we tell businesses they have to keep those things out of sight because of the aesthetics, because of the way it looks. So I don't think it's any different in our neighborhoods, and it should be unacceptable, the placement in front of it. And I really, honestly, I'm astounded sitting in the audience listening to this whole thing. I really am, because people should want better for their neighborhoods and their communities. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just one, because this has been a long journey, and I know sometimes we forget where we came from. But we did, or at least I did, look at other cities. Most other cities don't have any language about where to place their receptacles. Ravenna, what it has now, as vague as it is more specific language about placement of containers than most other cities. I can't say every other city. But I don't disagree with you. I think, I agree that the premise that I've been going by this whole time is not garbage, but garbage cans. And I don't disagree with that, and I agree with Mr. Calfee. I don't have a problem. But apparently it is somehow, the magic language eludes us to make it happen.
I just think the trash itself needs to be more of a priority than the cans.
Well, I agree with that.
Because there's a lot of trash on the
I agree
ground
with that.
and strewn throughout the yards and things piled up all around the properties. And, I mean, I can point out several to you just from here to my house 5 minutes away.
Yeah.
And if we're not going to enforce that, but we're going to enforce can placement, I just think we have to have
What?
priorities and clean up the trash first.
And then I just want to vote for the record.
Cliff has a comment.
Vote, so I know I don't have to punch so many buttons to send my emails to when I'm gonna bitch about this not being enforced. So I know which ones that you are against it, so I know that that's the only ones I have to send the email to. Vote.
What are we on, third reading?
This is
Oh,
third, so we just need a motion to pass.
No, there's an emergency clause.
Oh, there isn't.
I'll vote for the emergency clause.
I'll second.
Mr. Karas?
Yes.
Ms. Michael?
Yes.
Mr. Calfee?
This is on the emergency.
What are we voting on?
Just the emergency.
So if it passes, it goes into effect immediately.
No.
Ms. West?
No.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Ms. Wood?
No.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
Well, didn't get the 5 votes. I don't think.
No. I mean, it didn't get to 5 votes.
But I'll move to pass the ordinance then.
Second.
Mr. Karas?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
No.
Ms. West?
No.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Ms. Michael?
Yes.
Ms. Wood?
No.
4 yeses.
Did you vote?
Yeah, I voted yes. I've made the motion.
All right, that ordinance is adopted. Moving on to old business, I do have one thing before asking if there's any old or new business to come before council. So one is IT and training. This is a request. Training on the website to get clarity on agendas and other things that are inserted on there. We're recording right now. I don't understand why DRC or planning or anything else can't be hosted on there. If there needs to be training for those public meetings to be on the public website, then that needs to happen. But is there any other old or new business to come before council this evening? Hearing none, I was jotting down notes at the beginning of the meeting. Things have certainly changed. Because the mayor will be speaking in a couple weeks for the state of the city, and trying not to hone in on our recent conversation, but generally speaking, take a moment and hopefully liven the room a little bit, to reflect on the council accomplishments over the past year. And I think despite the challenges we've faced, we have a lot to be proud of this past year, speaking for council. From updating the chambers, small things that we see in front of us, to creating the DORA, which was a big thing, working with the downtown business district. We've worked to make meaningful changes within the community. So we're not measured by those projects. We've tried to and worked with the administration to find that common ground and advocate, I believe, for city staff this past year. And these efforts, I believe, are critical in moving our hometown in a more positive direction. So I look forward to the conversation around comprehensive plan and everything that comes with that. And despite all of the challenges, obstacles, I think we are, we are committed to moving this city forward, making a difference in our community. So it's the beginning of the year. We're on the ballot, but I just want to say I am grateful for the opportunity to sit in this chair and to work with each of you, no matter which side of the issue we fall on. And Bob, I think we've connected on the water tower project especially, and we are 100% aligned on things like that. But when we are against, we are back to back on those issues. But regardless, I look forward to working with everyone in the administration moving forward. And I know that we will continue to have great things to look forward to in the year ahead. So, as I said, the mayor is going to be speaking on the 20th for the state of the city. I've said that now 3 times, but I'll turn it over to other council members. Mr. Harper, though, if there's anything you'd like to say.
No additional comments this evening.
Ms. Michael?
Other than just that we're still, as a community, still seeing an ongoing issue of people that are homeless. We are not getting the results that we wanted with some of the area shelters that have opened up. And we are striving to still look at solutions. And it's very frustrating to see what our safety forces and our police forces go to, what they have to go through. And it always seems that everything seems to happen on a weekend or after hours that, I'm getting these phone calls. I'm still just as frustrated that our sheriff's department is continuing to drop off people in our downtown after hours, 9 o'clock at night. I was really disturbed when I learned that a couple of people were dropped off without proper clothing in the cold, without money, without transportation at 9 o'clock at night, and our police officers stepped up to help them because they were left out in the cold and left what I would call inhumane conditions for anybody. I'm very frustrated with that as a city council person, as for the safety of our residents and the impact it's putting on our safety forces. I find that Something has to stop. I don't think it's okay, and I think that we need to be stronger together as an administration and as council to look at options and ways that we can try to encourage this pattern to stop. I also had a situation with our police and fire that helped me with a homeless man, and because it was after hours, it was about 7:30 at night that the gentleman was suffering in a snowstorm. Well, not snow, but it was snowing out. There was no transportation earlier for him to get out to our homeless shelter in town. And because it was after hours for him to get out there due to the transportation, our police officer and Officer Wirt came over to help assist me with this individual. It was a unique situation, but he did drive the individual to the shelter and was turned away because it was after the hours of them accepting people. So again, there is a huge problem we have here in our community, and looking for solutions and ways to address this. And I'd like to see down the road possibly a line item or some type of a safety fund, emergency fund for our police officers and fire department to have access to resources. So I know there have been police officers, especially who have taken money out of their own pocket to buy bus tickets for some of these individuals that have been placed in our downtown because of reasons from other departments, and have gotten them to where they need to go. And it should not have to come out of their own pocket. That's all.
Mr. Karas, turn it over to you.
Nothing for tonight.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes, it was just a comment from different individuals who have watched and listened online. They have commented that at times the audio doesn't come through, even when they turn their computer volume up quite a bit. They said it's not coming through, sometimes things are muffled. And part of the request was, if it's possible, that we could listen to some of the meetings just to hear it for ourselves and just to see what we think. But I just wanted to relay that because some people are getting distracted on maybe not listening or watching because of that problem.
Mr. Calfee?
No additional comments?
Ms. West?
I just wanted to share that March is DD Pride Month for Portage DD, something positive. They have lots of different things planned throughout the month. Some cardio drumming stuff, some different speakers that are coming in and speaking. But on March 24th at 10 a.m. will be our rally at the courthouse lawn. So anybody that can join us to go for a nice walk, hopefully in the nice warm weather, because YDD Pride Month is in March and we go for a walk is beyond me. It's always a great opportunity. The mayor always joins us out there and shares some kind words with us, and it's always a really great thing to be a part of.
I know this is remarks, so I apologize. But would it, whether that's planning or another committee, be appropriate to consider, we can talk about this later, I guess, but appropriate to consider a resolution to highlight the,
I would love to consider a resolution for that.
I don't know, Rob, I'll touch base on planning. That might like, sorry.
Yeah,
Ms.
that would be great. Thank you.
Ms. West.
I have nothing tonight.
All right, Mayor, turn it over to you.
Well, first of all, I'd like to dovetail on what you said, Andrew, in terms of we get bogged down when we have a session like tonight, and we've had a few of those. I still have to commend the people that we're past the days of you follow in line and everybody votes yes, 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 yes. These things are being thoroughly discussed, and some of it's on procedure, some of it's on the problem itself. With that, both need attention, and we know we've got a lot of work to do. And any part when I do a State of the City speech, I also talk about where we need growth in terms of, and obviously here, we need growth in terms of dealing with some of these problems that all seem so surmountable that passage of one bit of legislation doesn't solve it. It takes a number of things, and it takes good staff. By and large, we have good people. So I want to commend council, and I've appreciated working with you to bring about the openness, that people can feel free to speak. And when we leave here, it's still a friend. We have different points of view on certain things, and to me, I don't get upset about that. Just by, want to remind people, some of this stuff, the painting that's up behind me is by Eddie Harris, and his church is not in the city. He is the Upper Room Church, which is right out in Black Horse after you go over the bridge. It's off to your left, and they're celebrating a 20th anniversary with it. Eddie is an artist that appears at the Art on Main Street. That particular painting my daughter bought and gave it to me. We've had it here in City Hall, and it's that time of year when we're voting, so Andrew talked me into putting it up on the wall. There happened to be a nail there. That made it simple with that. I spent some time last week at Carlin School with the preschool kids. My wife and I both went to read to the kids. That was a great experience. The kids were very receptive and very well behaved. And my wife was reliving her years of teaching kindergarten. She got to sit in front of a bunch of little kids, and we brought books that we had from the house. She's got a whole library of literature for kids that age. So that was enjoyable, and we were grateful that they invited us to come to that. It was mentioned earlier, but this couple, Rich and Ashley, purchased this from the previous owners. They had their grand opening today, and it's a new business in town that we need to help out as much as we can to keep them here and help them to be successful. Some other events that attended this past weekend, there was a fundraiser at Skeel for their Care for Kids program that they had there. They had ribs and chicken. I got there too late. The food was all gone, but I did leave a donation for that. And I know people are going to say, well, these aren't in the city. These folks are in and out of the city all the time. And I know that most of them, a lot of them from school. And the school covers the whole township, and I still think that way. If I'm asked to come and put in an appearance or help with something, we do that. I don't know if you're aware of it or not, but the Phoenix building is for sale. And I'm not sure what's going to happen, but Coleman has moved their office that they had there out to their office in Kent, which is really somewhere near where the old Moonglow roller rink used to be. It's up the side, I think at Rhodes Road is what it's on, over there. So we'll be working with them. That's a big block that is going to have a change with that, and we'll be available to help in any way we can with that. Let's see. think I will probably stop there.
All right. And while we're still on the record, and I'm thinking about it, Rob, can we add 106099 on for review for your agenda as pertaining to the ordinance we approved on third reading? With, so that's the penalties. Can we just review that for planning as it relates to the ordinance that was passed? We do have a request for executive session this evening. So, and that is pending legal issues, legal matter?
Pending legal issues, lawsuits. You know, the only thing I would want to mention, I guess, that, you know, our petitions seem to be, came up for scrutiny. And there is that portion on the top of the petition that only sits in the city of Ravenna's petition. And it may not necessarily be needed, because everything below that encompasses everything that the state wants and everything that the charter talks about. So I guess to maybe eliminate some confusion, I think we ought to just take a look at whether we need to keep that on the top of our petition for the city of Ravenna, because that is the only one that the county has that has that additional language to it. And I think they look upon it as perhaps surplusage, all right? So I think it's just something I want to bring up, and I don't want to bring that up in executive session because it doesn't necessarily apply there. But I want to just put it on the table for your committee, whichever appropriate committee you would have to address that issue, okay?
Personnel.
Executive session, it is based on pending lawsuits and matters that we have existing in court. And the only thing I would say is, Chief, I'd like you to stay for this first one, okay? Chief Wallace.
Do we have a motion?
To make a motion for an executive session to discuss pending legal matters.
Second.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Karas?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Moskin?
Yes.
Ms. Michael? Yes. Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.